And welcome to this episode of Experience Matters, our series exploring customer experience, employee experience, and everything in between. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about the convergence of consumer and business loyalty. And we're going to explore how businesses are driving growth by harnessing this convergence. So, customer loyalty. It plays a huge role in business success and in business loyalty. Loyal customers buy again, they buy more, they refer their friends without hesitation. But some stark realities are, and things that brands really need to understand, is that customers care less about the price they pay for things than how a relationship with a brand makes them feel. What matters to customers is simple. Things like, do they take care of me? Do I feel valued? Did the experience feel personalized? Do I trust the brand? Did they make it easy to get help when I needed it? Or did I have to jump through a million hoops? The reality in both B2B and B2C sectors is that customers are asking these questions on a daily basis, and they have very high expectations from the companies they do business with. In today's fast-paced, internet-driven world, the risk of commoditization is incredibly real. People quickly forget what they bought and who they bought it from unless brands deliver value in every interaction. And that includes interactions with the brand and your people and your systems, including the technology that powers your systems. And that's why I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have today about loyalty and the convergence of consumer and business loyalty, what that means for organizations, and the opportunities that exist for brands who embed loyalty at the very core of their business operations. And for this great conversation, I'm so excited to be joined by Sara Richter, who's a CMO of SAP Emarsys. Sara, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shelly. Delighted to be here.
I know that you live and breathe customer loyalty, so I can't wait to dive into this conversation. Before we get started, though, will you do me a favor and kind of take me through a little bit of your career backstory?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. So, from a technology and marketing standpoint, I've been really privileged to be a part of the MarTech world for, frightens me to say it now, but the best part of 25 years, and really have got to experience MarTech as it has grown from a relatively small part of an ecosystem to the mammoth thing that it is today, and how it influences so much of how marketers do things on a daily basis and how consumers, regardless of whether they're B2B or B2C, actually interact with brands. And I started many moons ago back with Unico when they were a very young startup, and have been privileged to work with a number of different technology companies, all the way now to Emarsys being part of SAP. So that's kind of one half of my career story. The other half is I describe myself still as a displaced Californian. I'm told I have retained my my American accent, but I have actually had the privilege of being an expat and also living in the UK for all that I am Los Angeles born and bred for the last 25 years. So I like to say that these days I now speak both American and European, which I think is really exciting in the role that I do and the things I do in terms of interacting and thinking about things from a global basis.
That's awesome. I watch a ton of BBC TV and BritBox TV. And so, like you, I feel like I'm, not quite like my world is more imaginary because I'm consuming content, especially British crime dramas. But I am no stranger to some of the colloquialisms and all kinds of different. I'll say things to my husband, and he'll just look at me. I'll say, "Yeah, I think I'm going to have a lie about today," and he's looking at me like, "What is going on with you? And where did you get these words?" So anyway, I think maybe you can relate.
Yeah, completely. The problem is actually a vocabulary one. And then I stop and I think, and I use the wrong word with the American audience, the one that I should have used with the British audience, and vice versa. It's all very confusing.
I completely understand. All right, Sara, I know the team at SAP Emarsys published 2 studies recently on loyalty. The Customer Loyalty Index 2025, which looks at how to turn customer engagement into lasting loyalty, and the B2B Buyer Loyalty Index 2025, which explores reimagining buyer relationship to unlock loyalty-led growth. We're going to talk about insights from both reports today, but let's get started first with findings from that Customer Loyalty Index. So to kick it off, what surprised you the most about the loyalty survey results in terms of customer expectations for digital experiences?
So a number of things. I mean, this loyalty index is now in its fifth year. So every
Yeah,
year I find things that teach me something about how consumers are engaging with brands and what we as marketers can learn to better engage with our customers. But this year, I think the thing that stood out for me as a surprise was loyalty is enormously widespread. And that probably is, everybody would shrug their shoulders. But the thing is, it's quite thin. It really doesn't stand for much friction. So, for example, in the US, 73% of consumers will tell you that they're loyal. That's a lot, right? It's almost three quarters.
yeah.
But more than half of them switch brands after
But are they?
a single bad experience. One, just one. So how loyal are they really? How loyal, how strong is that loyalty? How resilient is it in the face of interaction that wasn't positive, of being treated the wrong way on a channel, all of the things that you run into? And it
Yeah,
tells you that loyalty is not is conditional on every time there's an interaction. And you almost have to look at it as every interaction is an opportunity to increase and gain, but sadly it also has the negative impact of it's an opportunity to destroy, and you need to and you as a brand and as a marketer need to be aware of that. And when we look more broadly in the US this year, we really saw that true loyalty, which is that nirvana that all of us aspire to, everywhere in the US we're actually seeing a downturn, and we're seeing an upturn in a new kind of loyalty, which is called trend loyalty. And trend loyalty is exactly what it sounds like. It's people jumping on things that are all about a trend, are all about viral, are probably communicated possibly only through social. And that's an entirely different way of interacting. And brands have to now think about that as they are engaging, and what does that mean? So I think those are the things that this year really stood out for me in terms of that, but also brought me back to the basics of you need to think about every single interaction. And I know we're going to chat about B2B loyalty later
sure.
on in this conversation, but it's probably not a huge surprise that I'll give a hint that it's not that different in the B2B world, funnily enough.
And you know what? It really never has been.
No.
You know, and like you, I've been a career brand strategist for 20 some years, and I transitioned to working as a tech analyst in the last decade or so. So I bring my marketing and strategy hat to my engagements with clients and things like that. I'm obsessive about customer experiences and all of that sort of thing. And to me, you know, that your point about the trends, that's so it's not surprising at all. Certainly, you know, as somebody who is a very professional consumer myself, you know, I mean, you're constantly being bombarded, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you happen to hang out with, this is the viral, this is the, you know, and trying to create that urgency and that call to action, and that you need to buy this because everybody else is buying it and everybody else is talking about it. But what that means from a brand standpoint is so significant, because no longer are we mapping out, you know, a year-long plan and never deviating from that plan. We have to be paying attention to what those trends are, and we have to be able to access data and use data and be agile in our marketing efforts, which I know you know. But to me, that's what's so fascinating about this trend business, because it's a very big deal.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's exactly where you touched on data, and data is so fundamental. I know as
Yeah,
marketers, we're all tired of being told how important our data is. And you know, I'm a CMO myself, I get it. But the reality is that's the jewels in the crown.
yeah,
And
yeah,
but it doesn't do you any good if you can't activate it. So
absolutely.
can you activate it? Can you activate that data, all of those signals that those consumers are giving you in real time? Can you
Yeah,
activate it, act on it in a way that is personal, so that
yeah,
as you're seeing the shifts, you're actually jumping on them? Better yet, your data is telling you when the next shift is going to happen, and you're ahead of it, and you're proactive, and you're making that leap that, we've all talked about for so many years of marketing being a service, not being reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that real-time business there plays
Exactly.
a not at all insignificant role. All right, Sarah. Well, of course, we cannot have a conversation about anything today without talking about AI. And I know that AI and automation play an outsized role in influencing loyalty programs. How do you see AI and automation influencing loyalty programs and personalization strategies that are so important in this next year or so?
So I think it actually is exactly what we've just set up in terms of that conversation. If you can't activate your data at scale without AI, you just can't. It's impossible for marketers, for brands to
Yeah.
do that. But as the consumer, you and I know we're sitting there expecting a one-to-one conversation with a brand. We're expected to be treated as a unique human being every single time, in real time, want to be on, whether that's a social channel or a more traditional channel like email or anything in between. And the
Right.
only way you're going to be able to do that, the only way you're going to be able to maintain my loyalty is to know that I'm that same consumer who's interacting with you at different times on different channels. I need to be treated as the same consumer, and I need to be addressed with in a way that understands and shows that you as the brand know what I have been doing, not 2 weeks ago, not yesterday, in the last hour.
Right.
What actually have I been doing? Because that tells me that you know who I am as a person. And it tells me that you have put value in the exchange of data that we've had. I have given
Right.
you, as I've interacted with you, a certain amount of my personal data. I've told you things about myself. I've been willing to do that in some interaction. That's a value exchange.
Yeah.
I've given you valuable information about me. You as a brand, to keep my loyalty, now need to demonstrate that you value that, and you're going to use it, and you're going to use it in a way that benefits our mutual relationship. And that's what starts to push loyalty forward. And that's what starts to maintain loyalty as the 29% of people lose interest in the product and the brand once it stops trending. So
Yeah.
you've got my attention while something is trending, but it's no longer trending.
Right.
How are you going to continue to interact with me? How are you going to demonstrate that you know who I am and that you as a brand are bringing value to me? The data that I've given you that will help you bring that relationship forward.
Sarah, this is actually, your answer sets the stage perfectly for what I wanted to ask you about next. And really, this is an extrapolation of what we've just been talking about. But um, brand loyalty fragility is a very real thing. And when you're talking just a minute ago, I'm thinking about, again, I'm a professional consumer. I'm also the mother of 4 girls. I mean, there's always something I'm looking forward to buying. But the reality of it is, you know, when I think about what was that latest trend thing that I bought, oh, maybe it was this. Who did I buy it from? I have no idea. If I wanted another one, where would I find another one? Does this company make anything else? I don't know, and I don't really care because because it was a trend, because I jumped on it. But that moves us over to that loyalty fragility. And I know that there were some findings from your study, and that fragility represents a very real danger to organizations, especially in today's highly competitive market. Will you talk with me a little bit about your findings on that?
Absolutely. So if we look at the US, for example, and I think we touched on this before, but it's worth
Yeah.
saying again, that 52% of consumers in the US will switch brands after a single bad experience.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how many times they've purchased from the brand and how many good experiences they've had. They stub their toe against one bad experience and they're done. Now, you add to the mix that 57% will switch if a cheaper option exists. And it gets really, really messy.
Oh, yeah.
So I have no patience for you if you don't deliver an excellent experience every single time. I also no patience for you if suddenly you're charging me more than somebody else has.
Yeah.
So a brand has to be delivering value and make it very clear that their value is transparent, and the value has to go beyond the single interaction, and it has to somehow help get beyond price, because that can also be the deal breaker if you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I think we were just talking about AI, and this is how you can use AI to help you here, because it allows you to continually meet your customers where they are in real time. It's allowing you to use all that data to personalize across all those channels, because just sending impersonal communication in mass across the wrong channel will actually damage loyalty.
Right.
23% of respondents told us that just mass emails of themselves, just getting that spam that sadly I'm sure many of us still get,
Right.
every single time it happens, it just eats away at the loyalty that that individual has for that
Yeah.
brand. And that's a problem. And then we get into the fun of agentic AI, which I think you can't really, it's not only that you can't have a conversation about AI, right? You have to talk about agentic.
Absolutely.
It's been fascinating as we're now kind of post the 2025 holiday season, and where we saw people for the first time really using AI agents to help them buy presents for friends and family and shopping. And I think what we saw was the tip of the iceberg. It's gonna be fascinating, I think, to compare it when in 12 months time, to see how things are changing.
Yeah.
But because we are going to these AI agents and we're asking them very human questions about, where can I find the best value for this item at the best price? Well, the agent is going out and searching for that, and it's pulling in. It's not just doing here's the brands that have these products at this price. It's looking at things like customer reviews and the rewards that a brand might offer.
Right.
And it's learning from all that, and it's using all of that as part of what it's feeding back to you in terms of its recommendation for where you should purchase. And I think we're really very early in a lot of this,
Yeah.
but I think brands that are clever about it, and brands who really do have very visible, loyal customers, are going to be thinking about how that becomes so much more prevalent, so much more important, to help them stand out in the crowd and demonstrate they're a brand that people want to either continue to engage with, or if it's a new engagement, why you'd want to start there and continue longer term.
Right. There are a lot of interesting times ahead, that is for sure, as it relates to the agentic front.
Yes. Tip of the
I mean,
iceberg.
well, no, it's like, and I'm thinking about, brands like OpenAI and Perplexity are trying to move into the shopping arena so that you can actually use their platforms to find and shop and things like that. And again, we are so at the tip of the iceberg here that, I mean, it really is something that's exciting and yet a little bit terrifying too,
Oh,
because
completely.
a lot of change ahead. So Sarah, talk with me a little bit about, SAP. Again, I'll admit to bias, I've been working with the team at SAP for a very, very long time. So there's my disclaimer. But SAP is, deeply committed to customer experience. And I know that based on my own experiences, but what do you see as a differentiator in terms of SAP's approach to customer experience and loyalty? And what is it that you feel like SAP that might do differently from other vendors on the CX and loyalty fronts?
Oh, a great question. Obviously, I'm going to be delighted to talk about, and so I will try to make it relatively short and snappy,
Okay.
because it's a conversation we can have for a long time. I think, kind of as a high level, where you see SAP standing out is in connecting customer engagement to actual real operational execution. And there's a couple of kind of key ways that we do that. One is we're looking at experience, and we're thinking about connecting experience to actual operational delivery, whether that's marketing, sales, service, supply chain. And when we look at the results from the customer loyalty index, we know that's differentiator when you see this 52% of customers switching
Sure.
after one bad moment, right? We've already, both of us, mentioned data, and I'm sure we will continue to do so as we chat, because data is so important. Well, SAP has this wonderful advantage of unifying data across the entire enterprise. And
Right.
you're looking at customer data and product data and service data, operational data. And the more of that you can bring together, and the more information that you have about all of the interactions across the entire supply chain, then you're really understanding how you can deliver that consistent and context aware engagement. And I think that's something that unique that SAP really brings to the party.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our commitment to loyalty starts to show in the fact that we actually have a loyalty index that we've been running for 5 years now from a consumer standpoint, and now we're branching out and thinking more about B2B. So we're so committed to understanding loyalty that we're doing our own research around it and trying to understand that, more and more, and feed that back into everything that we do. And the way that we connect journeys and orchestrate things actually really does help convert initial engagement all the way through adoption, renewal, and expansion, which is a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and we're able to express, I think, in our earlier, actually. SAP is so grounded in complex B2B relationships. And whether we're talking about things like customer loyalty and marketing, or we're talking about partners and sales and industries, loyalty is such a big part of that, and such a big part, I think, of our heritage and where we come from. It's intrinsic to what we can offer.
Yeah.
And I think the last 2 points, I could not say with my Emarsys piece of it, delivering omni-channel engagement at scale is something that we are truly committed to, whether we're doing that for consumers or from a B2B standpoint. And all of that comes, I think, on a really unique platform of trust on a global scale. That is something that is very, very specific, again, and intrinsic to SAP. And whether you're looking at the kind of organization we are, but the kind of enterprise grade security and compliance and data governance and all those good things that we bring to the party. So I think all of that wraps up to answer your question about where we as SAP stand on this and what we want to bring to brands and to consumers to really to learn more and engender loyalty.
Yeah. I think that your points are well made in terms of, when a customer is making a vendor decision, right? That requires a little bit of a leap of faith. And the reality of it is that SAP is not in any way a new player. And
No.
so taking that leap of faith, given the company's history and the deep expertise and commitment, like you said, to security and data and all that sort of thing, I think that makes that leap of faith a little bit less onerous, which I think is a significant differentiator.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, I want to touch on ESG. Is there, and we've I've covered ESG for a long time, and we've kind of seen different ends of the spectrum. And, there are many customers, I happen to be one of them, who cares deeply about sustainability. And I am a customer who, when I get a package in the mail, I pay attention to who's using compostable packaging and what are they doing, and is every little thing in there wrapped in individual pieces of plastic? Well, that irritates me, and that I remember that when I'm thinking about a brand. So talk with me. Did you have any findings from your study on the ESG front, and is there anything about a brand's commitment to ESG that impacts customer loyalty?
Absolutely, I think there is. So let me start from a broader level. Of our six types of loyalty, and I encourage anybody to dive into the survey and learn more about this. Ethical loyalty is one of the types of loyalty, which tells you how important it is that what we hear back from consumers in terms of how they are considering purchases, it fundamentally, we get so much feedback around that it absolutely is a signal, and those values do drive engagement and action, reaction, and without a doubt, brand abandonment as and when.
Sure.
So I think it is an absolute fundamental now, and it's something that I think all brands need to think about.
Yeah.
However, I think consumers do, however, bring pragmatism a lot of times to the party, and I think it's probably not a huge surprise given this. There's been so much economic pressure, and so many individuals have certainly felt it, and I'm sure will continue to, unfortunately, that when we tot it all up, we find that while values influence loyalty, price still, they don't push price out of the equation. Price still comes at top of that. But we did also find that 33% switched following a controversy that they saw a brand was wrapped up in that they were not comfortable with. And to the points that you were just making, 24% switched due to sustainability practices. So exactly that. The packaging was consistently not sustainable, and perhaps people complained about it and they didn't get anywhere. And I said, no, I can buy the same product from a company that is going to still do the other things I want them to do, but demonstrate that they're in line with my sustainability practices.
Yeah. It's keeping customers happy is no It's no small task. And it's funny because what we do keep coming around to, yes, sustainability is important. Yes, this is important. Yeah, but you know what really matters too? How much I'm going to pay for it. So yeah, and not surprising.
No, it's not. Everybody's human at the end of the day, right? And I think that's so important. And as you're remembering this, it's
Yeah,
easy for all of us to think about, it becomes data in a database or a data lake or
yeah,
numbers on a spreadsheet. Behind all of that are human beings.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
human beings are loyal or disloyal based on a number of different elements.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of different personal elements. All right, moving on. Now I want to dive into some findings from the B2B Buyer Loyalty Index study. There were some really impressive findings from that study. A few highlights that I noticed were 90% of organizations shared they have become more loyal toward a supplier in the last 12 months. That's a big number. 95% of buyers reported that a supplier's use of AI positively impacts their organization's loyalty. Not surprising at all. 67% of buyers reported they've switched from a supplier due to the supplier's lack of innovation. Again, sort of a wake-up call there. And 35% of organizations shared they have enhanced data sharing or systems capabilities to evaluate the success of loyalty programs. Well, that makes sense at all. So while these are some impressive stats, your report indicates that loyalty across both B2B and B2C is fragile and fleeting. I'm quoting from the report.
Yep.
And that even the most loyal buyers, we talked about this, will quickly switch when service, cost, or values misalign. As a customer, I can totally attest that it takes just a moment, one unexpected interaction or a result or a lack of response or attention, and I'm moving on.
Yep.
And I know that I am not alone on that front. So, what are the findings from your study, Sarah, tell you that organizations need to do to shore up and strengthen those customer relationships?
So I think the point is and perhaps it's been always been true, but I think you perhaps as business practices in B2C and B2B are becoming closer and closer. And you're seeing the same trends start to emerge. And as you've just said, you are a consumer. You're a
Yeah,
consumer, you're a consumer on a personal standpoint, but you're also a business consumer.
right.
So why should I be surprised if I'm engaging with you from a B2B standpoint that you're going to have different expectations of me as a B2B business than you would if I was a B2C brand? You
Yeah,
expect your communication and your experience to be seamless on both sides. You expect the level of service to be the same. You expect the engagements to be consistent. You expect me to understand you as a customer. You don't really care if I'm selling you a piece of technology that's allowing you to run your customer engagement systems or if I'm selling you mascara. Your expectations are actually very much the same.
yeah,
And that's what we're seeing more and more in the B2B world. And so yeah, to your point, you know, 74% of people say they're loyal, but they've also switched down to cost, service, and quality. Well, that sounds awfully like the fragility of loyalty that we were talking about in the consumer world a
right.
few minutes ago, doesn't it? Um, I think there's also as we looked at some of this, the phrase that I particularly like, the loyalty illusion, and this exists specifically within the B2B world. 71% claim loyalty. Again, this is sounding rather familiar, isn't it?
Sure.
But 70%. So most of these people are existing something that we're calling default loyalty. It doesn't sound very loyal, does it? Why do we call it that? Because they're staying where they are because it just hurts too much to make a change.
Yeah, the status quo is easier sometimes.
Yeah, there's no pain. There's no gain, but there's no pain.
Correct.
And so they're just not willing to do it. And it's so consistent with with all of the findings that we've talked about already from a consumer standpoint. And you're very much seeing those from a business standpoint. So how strong really is that B2B loyalty? Where is it resting? And how confident can businesses be that their customers are truly loyal? And when push comes to shove, they are truly invested in the brand and in the products in the long term. And I think it's an assumption that B2B companies cannot make, and they need to ensure that they are providing the experience businesses just as they would if they were a consumer,
Yeah.
understanding their engagements. you're probably connecting with them on different channels. You probably need to have different value exchange in terms of data, but you still need to bring the same level of thought and care to each of those engagements and make sure that they are valuable, so that overall you've actually developed a loyal experience that works both ways.
One of the things that I mentioned that I have 4 daughters, and they have all worked for me in my business over the years at various times, getting some work experience. And one of the things that I have said to all of them ad nauseum is that you must never lose sight of the fact that when somebody is, now I'll use the words, writing you a check. And even though we don't write a lot of checks these days,
no, but I remember when we did.
Right? But anytime someone is writing you a check and paying for something, and this is as true if you are an employee of an organization as it is if you're a vendor of an organization. But those people who are writing those checks are almost every time stepping back and saying, what am I getting from this?
What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? Is this worth what I'm paying? Do they value me? Do they value, whether it's this job, this opportunity, this whatever? And I think that it's just so, and to me, that's a lot of what you've said here in terms of the fragility and the fleetingness of loyalty. It's that, what have you done for me lately is the bar. And do not think that your customers are not asking that question on a regular basis. And I think that, we've all had relationships with vendors where, you buy something and you may not have any problems or anything else, but you never hear from that vendor again until it's time to renew.
Oh, yeah.
Which says a lot about how valued or not your relationship is with them. So I think that that's this is people need to remember that the fragility and the fleeting nature of loyalty are very real things.
Indeed.
Yeah. So let's talk a minute about transactional loyalty. What is that, Sara, and how does that differ from emotional engagement with a buyer?
I think it's actually, you nicely, just without using those words, you actually really nicely summed it up.
Okay.
So I'll just expand. That's the point. A transaction is a transaction. It's a moment in time.
Yeah.
I purchased something. Either I purchased it as a consumer or I purchased it in my role as a marketing leader. It was a moment in time. There's nothing emotional about that. I did something. I needed X. I purchased Y. It's here and I'm using it. It is actually that straightforward. So when you just leave it to that, exactly your example of, hey, I bought this thing from you and I haven't heard from you as a vendor for a year. You don't even actually know if I'm using it, but you want me to renew or buy it again or upgrade it or whatever it is. And what we find is that in those instances, you find 70% of B2B buyers are gone. They will, because you've made it very clear the only thing you were interested in was the $19.99 purchase, and that was it. Doesn't matter what the purchase was for.
You have made it very clear that this was a transaction and nothing more.
Exactly. And even if it's working well for me, it's still actually not enough, because an operational dependency doesn't create an emotional bond. You have to do more. You have to go beyond. My expectations of you in a B2B world are not dissimilar from what my expectations are in a B2C world. I want you to engage with me. I want you to know who I am. I want you to demonstrate that you understand my needs, that you're going to be there for the challenges that I have, that you are going to do things that make me want to engage with you as a brand and feel that I'm getting something. I'm getting recognition. There's something that's coming back that's making me feel good about the relationship, that it's two-way beyond simply, to your point, writing a check. It has to be more than that.
And to me, the thing I think that's also interesting, Sara, is that in my experience, a lot of times this is where the relationship and the emotional part of a B2B vendor experience is so important, because you may make a buying decision about a particular piece of technology solution or something like that, and it may actually not be perfect. And there could be other options that would be better solutions. But I have such a great relationship with you, person who sold it to me, and the person who's taking care of me, and the person who's answering my questions, and all, like, and we want to do business with people that we trust and with brands that we trust. And so sometimes I think that we actually hang on in some instances where something is not 100% the ideal situation because that relationship is so strong, and that's really important too.
I agree. And I think that it's that craving, I think, that runs through all the things we talk about with loyalty. We crave the human element of the
Yeah,
relationship.
connection.
And yes, exactly. And that's why, we spoke about AI earlier, and I very much talked about there are ways that AI can help you scale, and it can help you bring those experiences to the right person.
Yeah,
But they still have to be human experiences. I still have to feel that at the end of the day, there is an exchange and engagement between me and a person,
yeah,
a real human being behind that, and that it's two ways, and that's an emotional connection, and that's a
yeah,
bond. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. That will stay, and you will tolerate an upgrade that didn't work, or a product that wasn't right, or a timing
yeah.
that was missed, because you feel you're getting more value in some other way. And
Well, and because the relationship has become humanized as
exactly,
opposed to just transactional.
precisely. And
Yeah,
then all of a sudden we start to have loyalty.
yeah. Really interesting stuff. So let's talk a little bit about moving a relationship from a transactional one to one where that customer, that buyer is emotionally engaged. Well, what do brands do strategically, Sarah?
Well, I think we've touched on a lot of it. I mean, really a lot of it, I would say, is you're thinking again about these engagements. Are you thinking about, do you know your customer? Do you know me? Do you know what do you know about me? Are you gathering the right data about me, and are you activating that data every time you interact with me? And that doesn't mean just if you're my sales rep. Last time you gave me a call to say, hey, is everything okay? Does that feed into the other communications that I get, into the emails that I get from you? Do you know that I'm going to your events? I'm not going to your events. Do you know that
Yeah,
I went to this webinar where I learned this? And are you then following up with the next things I might want to know? Or are you sending me batch and blast communication that doesn't take into account any of the things I have or have not done or interacted with you as a brand,
right.
and doesn't treat me as any kind of an individual, and demonstrate from a business standpoint that you value me and my business?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're telling me. It's not about valuing me as an individual necessarily. Now are you valuing the business I represent? And are you valuing the investment that we have made into you? And are you creating a connection based on that? And it's the principles are very much the same as they were for, consumers, but some of the mechanisms are obviously a little bit different when we come
Yeah.
into B2B.
And to me, I think the thing that's so interesting here, Sarah, is that customers are very savvy people. And so when you are accustomed, when you are getting good experiences, whether in the B2C world or the B2B world, it's possible.
Yeah.
Right. And so it makes us even more frustrated when we're navigating a situation where, perhaps the technology isn't aligned. Perhaps they're not using data. Perhaps they're just missing so many things. And I think because customers are becoming increasingly savvy, because AI is playing a much larger role and will continue to play a much larger role, our expectations are shifting. And I think that really ups the ante for brands as well. I mean, this is not something that you can wait on.
Expectations are, you cannot hide behind the idea that the expectations in B2B are somehow less than they are in B2C.
Yeah.
Everything that you expect as a consumer, and you and your four daughters expect as a consumer, you're bringing to every single B2B expectation in your relationships now. Every time,
Yeah.
every interaction, every single one.
Absolutely.
And whether you're conscious or unconscious about it, it is totting up in your head, and you are
Yeah.
thinking about that, and you are reacting to it and making decisions about how valued you believe that you are, and how much this relationship or lack thereof matters to you. And at the end of the day, if there's value, you will probably maintain the relationship with the vendor or the brand. And if there isn't value, you're going to go find it, and you're going to go find it. Someone else is going to be offering it. It's a competitive marketplace. People are getting it right.
Yeah, you're moving on. So, oh my gosh, we could talk forever. So I'm going to try to move this along because I love this topic, but let's talk briefly, if we could, on partnerships. For example, the partnership between SAP and WalkMe. So will you walk in, and I will say I'm super familiar with WalkMe. I've actually been covering WalkMe when nobody knew what a digital adoption platform was, when the company was just a little startup out of Israel, and now they're part of the SAP organization. But will you walk me through how organizations are leveraging a solution like WalkMe and SAP to help drive loyalty and adoption in these enterprise environments?
So I think WalkMe is a great example, but they're not the only example, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all about, I think you kind of want to zoom out a little, almost a little bit further. And when you bring different pieces, none of us work in a world where we only have one solution for everything, right?
Sure.
Our worlds on a B2B level are, when it comes to technology, are very complex. And of course, that adds to the friction that we were talking about at the beginning of a conversation, right? Some of your complexity now comes from, does this, not just does it do what it said it was going to do, but is it working with all of the different parts of my ecosystem? And is the data flowing? And can I see now holistically what I want to see? And it's really interesting that one of the things that we learned from the survey is that 70% of buyers switch providers because they think things are just too hard and there isn't enough support, specifically around things like this. So when you get into situations that SAP and WalkMe, such a great example of platforms that work together, that some of that friction we're talking about, it magically vanishes.
Yeah.
And it's not magic, obviously. It's a lot of hard work behind the scenes of actually bringing things together. But that experience is what brings connection and where people get value. And then they're going to be able to start to move forward and think about things that are much more complex, and perhaps be a little bit less scared of taking it, right? So I mean, you could think about, in a different example in our SAP world, is using SAP ERP, right? So many complex processes, so many tools and data. Any opportunity you have that brings those together and that extends that reach by an ecosystem that's better connected, then all of a sudden you're impacting customer loyalty, both from the brands who have purchased you from a B2B standpoint, but a decent chance that those brands then have their own customers. So you're impacting even further out and thinking about how you're making that ecosystem actually directly impact the quality of your loyalty.
Right. I love that. All right, Sarah, as we wrap this episode, we'll go back to AI for just a moment. How do you think AI-driven personalization will reshape loyalty programs in the next year or so? We've touched on this a little bit, but what should leaders be thinking about and focusing on as they're developing their own loyalty strategies?
So there's no way that you are successful in personalization or successful in loyalty in the next few years without putting AI to work for you. I think that's a baseline, absolute baseline. So then we've also talked about where AI is so powerful is it's activating your data. So what do you understand about your data that you're not activating? What do you know about your customers that you're not doing? We talk about 70% of people switching due to poor service. Well, you know that.
Right.
Your customers, right? You know that, but you probably have a lot of data and you probably have it in silos, and you probably aren't thinking about how do you turn that data that tells you something that you're probably not that happy about.
Right.
But how can you look at it and learn from that and then activate it and use it to take the next step to improve it? Or better yet, then look at it and say, okay, this is how we did this because we were operating in a unsophisticated way and we weren't communicating at scale. Can we use our data to allow us to communicate to all of these different customers in a personalized way at scale to deliver better service, to increase loyalty, to demonstrate personalization? And I think for brands that they do that, they're going to win. They're going to see the returns on that. And I think for the ones that don't, I think it could be very painful.
I think it could be incredibly painful. That is for sure. Well, that is it for this episode of Experience Matters. Delivering on the customer loyalty front, whether on the B2B or B2C front, is one of the biggest challenges facing organizations today. And this research from SAP Emarsys shows that customer loyalty is absolutely not a given. It's a living relationship. It's one that's earned on a moment by moment basis. And that is really not an overstatement. Consumer and business loyalty have converged, and best in class organizations are leveraging real time data, enabling real time responses, and delivering personalized care that makes customers feel seen and respected. Loyalty is not a program, it's a business growth strategy. And brands who understand this and who leverage AI, personalization, and connected system to act in real time are the ones who will not only build trust, but also chances are good they'll gain a significant competitive advantage in the process. Many thanks to you, Sara Richter, CMO of SAP Emarsys, for joining me today. I'll include links to the SAP research in the show notes, but Sara, I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation, and you did not disappoint. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Shelly.
Absolutely. Well, we'll do it again.
Good.
All right. Well, to our viewing and listening audience, I'm Shelly Kramer, principal analyst here at Kramer&Co. If you haven't yet hit the subscribe button, do that now, and we'll see you again next time.